Hello and welcome to the Stack Magazine's podcast. My name is Stephen Watson and I run Stack, the magazine club that delivers a different independent publication to your door every month. In this episode, I'm speaking with Nancy Heley, editor and creative director of Sandweegies, their magazine that takes readers on a trip around Glasgow one sandwich at a time. Now, of course, food and place are very closely connected, and there are lots of magazines that mix food and travel, generally profiling different places via their different cuisines. But it's more unusual to take the same approach in a single city across multiple issues. So Nancy, tell me, first, how did this magazine come about?
That's a great question. It's quite a long answer, but I will try and
We've got plenty of time.
Nice. Okay, so a bit of a background. I've been an editorial designer for about 2 years. I've been a freelance for 2 years. So I work with different publications and different magazines, and I've kind of always loved doing that. And when I graduated from the art school, I kind of had a bit of a panic because I did a bunch of internships and I kind of realized that I really did not want to be like a conventional graphic designer because the design that I liked was all related to editorial and print. But the jobs in Glasgow and Edinburgh and everything, nothing could really satisfy that out offer that. Everything's kind of like packaging design or logo design, which I've never really been interested in. So long story short, I went freelance and at the same time I started working in a magazine shop in Glasgow. It kind of felt like I was running the shop at the time because me and the owner, it was just us working there, and he would work a few days a week and I would work the rest. And I could also I could do my work when I was in the shop and kind of like have this kind of routine going, which was amazing. So I really got like an insight into the publishing world, and I just fell like deeper in love with editorial and print and everything like that. And I think being in the magazine shop was so interesting because I saw what was really selling well and what people were drawn to, but I also kind of saw what was missing and saw like the ideas just kept building about what sort of magazine I would want to make. And I remember having a conversation with Nikki from International Magazine Centre. Um, the first time I met her, I think actually, she came into the shop and I was saying I'm an editorial designer and like I've kind of thought about making my own magazine. It's kind of just been like this thing that I never thought I would do, but I would always look at people who have magazines, be like, wow, that is just so cool that people can do something like that. And I remember her saying, if you're an editorial designer, you have to make a magazine. Like that is, you just have to do that. Like I tell everyone that. And then it was just like a light bulb moment. I was like, why have I not done that yet? Because one of the biggest expenses is design and art direction and everything like that. So if I could do that myself, then that's a big bonus. So the idea of making a magazine came from that. But then it was like, what would the magazine be? And it was never really a question for me. It was always going to be a food magazine because I think that's what I bought. That's what I loved to buy and look at. I could see other people loved to buy that. I'm a huge foodie. It was just kind of a no-brainer that it was going to be food. But then the idea of sandwiches kind of came from seeing how broad a lot of these food magazines were and how you have stuff like Fare, which goes from like city to city, looking at different foods. But I kind of wanted it to be like very rooted in like one city and kind of use like a niche food group as a way to zoom into other factors in Glasgow. So obviously I've lived in Glasgow for about 7 years. And one thing I've always said is how incredible the food scene is up here. And when I first moved up here, I was genuinely like so blown away being a big foodie myself. I was like, there were so many incredible places, and I was like, I feel like it doesn't get the recognition that it really deserves. And on the other hand, I've always been really fascinated by the niche and how you can zoom into something and it instantly makes it interesting. Um, so yeah, all those ideas. I then went out to Outlier, which is an amazing cafe in Glasgow. I had a chicken sandwich. Two and two came together. True story. I was I was like, this sandwich is so insanely amazing. Imagine a magazine all about sandwiches and you can like run through different themes. So yeah, long
And
story
so,
short.
so the magazine was born and the first issue was the chicken issue. So I'm
Yes,
assuming that this is because of the chicken sandwich in Outlier.
exactly. However, I will say I actually was gonna just long story short, I was just gonna do one issue. That whole idea of starting a magazine was purely a passion project for me. Like, it was really nothing else. I had no idea I was gonna do an issue 2. It was just for me to, like, scratch an itch almost, and just, like, I want to kinda take control of, like, this industry that I feel like I'm in, but I really don't really like the industry, and I wanna just create my own project and see what happens. Like, I remember saying, "If one stranger buys it, I'll be overjoyed," and it's just like grown so much. And yeah, so me doing the chicken issue, I just thought it'd be the chicken issue and that would be it. So I've kind of really had to like adapt the whole magazine and try to work out how it has to have longevity now almost.
Okay, well, so how do you do that? Like, how do you go about making this thing last?
Yeah, so that was definitely a problem that I kind of saw. Like, once I saw, I mean, once it sold really well and people like loved it and showed interest, I was like, how will I turn this into like a bigger thing and how could this last? And I think issue 2, breakfast rolls, that was like, to me, that's like the holy grail issue, because breakfast rolls are such a huge topic in Scotland and Glasgow as well. And it was so fascinating, like, going into the subject. But we've only skimmed the surface. Like, there's so much more we could have got into, and like so many more places we could have gone to. And I think as I've been doing this project and developing it, we also have a weekly Substack that we do. That's gained a lot of momentum as well, and we send it out as a newsletter, and that's kind of a lot more focused on the food scene in general. So like going to different cafes, restaurants, speaking to the owners and the chefs, and people love it, and I love doing it, and it's so interesting hearing all these stories. So I think despite the name, I have kind of adapted the project after issue 1 and tried to make it very clear that it's not just about sandwiches, it's about, different foods, it's about the food scene in general. And after the 3rd issue, we're going into other food groups, which is very exciting.
So this is like how cake scene started out, all about cakes, and
Exactly,
then
yeah.
sort of like spun out. Okay, so I
Yeah.
see. This is how you like broaden things out from here.
Yes,
Now,
yeah.
anyone who's listening to this and has a good understanding of the Glaswegian accent will get a sense
Mhm.
that you're not from
Yes.
Glasgow.
I'm not from Glasgow, no. I've lived here for about 7 years. I came up in 2019 and I went to uni at the art school. I'm originally from Brighton, and yeah, I've always loved Scotland. My cousin lives up here, so we would visit a lot, and I just kind of fell in love with how strong their culture is. And I mean, I can go off on like the people are so like the community feel is worlds apart from the south of England, in my opinion. And just leaving the art school, obviously a lot of the route people take is go to London. And I felt like I grew up in London, like I was always in London. Brighton's an incredible place, but I felt like I've done it, and I really wanted to not kind of fit the mold of rushing to London and trying to fit into this industry that I wasn't even sure I wanted to be a part of, instead of like taking a good few years living in the city that I love. And like I have such an amazing community and friends up here. And yeah, I just love the city so much, and I feel so lucky to live here. And yeah.
I was talking with the guys from Piscine magazine
Yes,
a little
yes,
while
I
ago.
watched it. Uh-huh.
And so obviously they are based in Glasgow as well. And
Uh-huh.
they were talking about the idea of Glasgow as this place which is like way bigger than like a town or a village, but actually smaller than what you'd expect from a city. And they also are
Hmm.
from the School of Arts. It
Yes.
feels like there must be this kind of like creative communal sort of like almost sort of
Mm.
self-sustaining creative community going on there.
Yeah, I actually went me and Molly were in the same year at uni, so I know them a little bit. Yeah, I think it's such an interesting city because there is such a strong art scene up here, but like everywhere right now, you can kind of feel it decaying quite a lot, and I think it's really frustrating because it has so much to offer, but people don't really realize it. And in terms of like creative design studios up here, it's so narrow on the work that they create, and it really did not interest me at all. So I think as I said before, like it definitely was a huge panic for me when I graduated. And I think a lot of people like the option really is to go to London or that's it, or, work in hospitality and try and be freelance. And I just really didn't want to like fit into that mold and kind of like cave into that because I don't want to be paying 2 grand a month for a moldy flat in London. Like I really want to try and live in a place where I can like express myself creatively and like, pay a lot less for a flat so I can work part-time and do something on the side. And like I wanted to try and break the mold that everyone does and like try and do something up here really.
So Glasgow is a big and important part of like this whole
Mhm.
story.
Mhm.
I feel like you not being from Glasgow is also a part of it because,
Mm.
I mean, the magazine, when you read the magazine, it reads like a sort of love letter to
Mm.
the city.
Yeah.
And I guess not to compare it directly with Piscine all the time. I think like
No, please, yeah.
so Piscine has this love for Glasgow, but it's a sort of darker kind of like, it's like, kind of, there's more sort of anger in there.
Mm.
Yours, I feel, is more kind of forthright. It's just like, I love this place and the
Mm.
people, and this magazine is going to show you what it's all about. Like, are you? How much are you making this for readers in Glasgow, and how much are you making it for readers who are elsewhere?
Think like being a young designer, I this is the first magazine I've ever put out, obviously. Like I still have so much to learn in terms of like how do you make a magazine that caters to people all over the world and not just, in Glasgow. But I do think because I started it as a passion project, I'm going to sell it in the magazine shop I work in, maybe a few other shops in Glasgow. The first issue was totally made for that. Then it was like issue two, it was like we're trying to adapt it to a wider audience. So we put out a bunch of commissions and open calls for like personal stories to do with rolls and breakfast rolls and everything like that, which I think really elevated it and it showed people how Glasgow has such a rich culture and there's so many stories behind something as simple as a morning roll. I don't want to turn into like a history of the breakfast roll, but it's more like a celebration of it and how it's like adapted over time. So I think we're not trying to turn it into like a history lesson, but I think in doing that, it I want people to buy it who are interested in Scottish culture. And I think Scotland, like, it's always been like a prominent country, but I think recently, similar to Ireland, there's quite like this love for Scotland, and it's kind of like Old Hag in London. That's a prime example of like a cafe that's totally full of Scottish food and the guys from Glasgow and everything, and people love it so much. And I think it's an example of how people are realizing there's life outside of London, and there's all these amazing cities that have so many stories. So yeah, I don't know. It's a learning curve, I think, for sure.
And a big and important part of that kind of abundant love for the place
Mm.
is in the photography, because I mean, this is one of those magazines that I read and just like get instantly hungry.
Yes.
There's
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
pictures in this issue of like kind of fried eggs kind of oozing out of sandwiches and stuff.
Yeah.
Who's the photographer who's working on this?
A guy called Paul Reich. I met him. I did a few production shoots as a runner when I graduated, and I met him on a shoot. And then when I came up with the idea for the magazine, I put it on my design Instagram, like a story of being like, I have this idea for a magazine, like who would buy it? And I got so many replies. Like I was blown away. Like 30 people replied, be like, you have to do this magazine. And I was just joking. I wasn't being serious. And I was like, oh, like maybe I should. And Paul replied to it and he said, listen, like I'll work with you. I'll do the photos. Like let's make this happen. It's a great idea. So yeah, he's absolutely incredible, like so talented, and me and him are a little dream team making this happen. So yeah.
And the approach that you take, I mean, the pair of you, is like, the food is front and center, but the people
Hmm.
are also very important in that. So it's the for anyone who's not seen the magazine, the aesthetic is that thing of like, there's lots of like stainless steel in there because you're in kitchens, you're in like proper working kitchens with people making
Hmm.
stuff. Who like, how much is this guided by like, okay, the food here is amazing, and how much of
Hmm.
it is like actually the people here have got a great story to tell about what they're doing.
Yeah, that's like the biggest part, to be fair. I think we learned so much from shooting issue one. And we actually learned that the food is obviously really important, but it's like the stories behind the chefs and the owners are just even more important, really. And like we also learned what's really important is the space that you're shooting in and how it feels and how it looks and the interiors. Because if we're shooting in a place that feels quite uncreative and not inspiring, it's really going to come out in the photos. And that's definitely what we learned from issue one. And we brought in a new writer for issue two who did the whole thing, and he was coming up with all these places, which was incredible, but he didn't realize that like the area and the location and the interiors are so important, because at the end of the day, from an editorial point of view, you need to make it look nice, that people look at it and be like, oh, that looks like a beautiful cafe or whatever. That's so important, and not just focusing on they have a good breakfast roll. Like it needs to, everything needs to kind of match up. But I think for issue two, I think there was so many places we could have gone, because so many places in Glasgow obviously do morning rolls and breakfast rolls. So the choices were endless, and it was kind of like, how do you pick six or seven or eight places out of all these things? But I think we decided we needed a total range of, we needed a roll that was really classic, quite cheap, you get your bang for your buck, a classic greasy spoon type thing, ranging from a £7 roll that was quite deluxe, quite different, that a lot of people would turn their nose up at and be like, well, that's way too fancy. So we needed like a range in the middle, and we really tried to get that, but it was hard to try and do it justice, to
Yeah,
say the least.
that raises an interesting question. So
Mm,
here you are, person from Brighton
yeah.
turns up in Glasgow and decides to tell Glaswegians all about the best breakfast rolls, for
Mhm.
example.
Mhm.
Do you ever get any sort of pushback from people going like, whoa, who are you? What's going on
No,
here?
honestly, I think about this every day. Like, it terrifies me, because I think definitely there's definitely something in that which I completely understand. I think what I do is I try to only work with Scottish people, people that were like born in Glasgow or they really know about it. And I want the writing to feel like it's a Glaswegian talking and stuff like that. And I think for me, like, I met my boyfriend when I was in first year of university, and his family, he has a big family that are from Glasgow. And I think listening to them and seeing their relationship with food really shaped how I saw Scotland and how like my relationship with the food here. And I'd be the first to admit that, I'm not I'm obviously not from here, and I totally appreciate that. No one's actually challenged me on that yet, but I'm whatever they say, I totally understand it. And I think for me, I'm approaching this project from a design point of view and like a creative point of view. I'm not really approaching it saying like I know everything and I'm like kind of appropriating the culture here. I kind of wanted it to be like, this is my view on it and why I love Glasgow and Scotland so much. And yeah, like you said, a love letter, and like my love letter, but not saying everything is like factual or correct. And we have that in small print at the back, but like, I try to make steps to make sure I'm only working with Scottish people, and like, all the writing is very authentic and genuine. So yeah.
And so you've talked, or you haven't talked, you've mentioned a couple of times issue three,
Yeah.
and this idea of like we don't want it to be a history lesson. So can
Hmm.
you talk at all about what you're making, what you have in mind?
Yes, I'm not going to reveal the theme. I'll tell you when this is paused. But last time I just, gave the theme away straight away and I was chatting about it. And I kind of want to keep the mystery going. But the theme we picked is such a huge topic. I mean, it's a huge topic everywhere, let alone in Glasgow. And it was trying to find a way to narrow it down and bring it back to a sandwich almost, but then also a big enough topic that you can kind of spread out a bit. It's really hard, but I've had a lot of chats with my writer and we've finally like nailed the brief and we know what we're doing. But yeah, after this issue four, which is I'm most excited about, that's gonna slowly go out a bit.
So you're going
Yes.
beyond the sandwich from issue 4.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Nice. So
Uh-huh.
you mentioned earlier, so you were working in the magazine shop. So was that the
Hmm.
Magazine Appreciation Society?
Yes, it was.
And so I mean, I've never been there in person. I only
Hmm.
know stuff from kind of following along, like on Instagram.
Hmm.
Can you tell us like what's happening, like there at the moment? 'Cause I know there's been some really big and heavy stuff going on.
Yeah, so about it was about a year ago actually, or just over a year ago, it shut down after 3 years, 3 and a bit years. I was there for 2 years, so it was heartbreaking really. The building was owned by the council and I think they just massively upped the rent and it was just not realistic to keep going. But it was a shame because every month we were getting more and more busy and like I poured so much love and work into the shop and it was such a passion of mine, like seeing people come in and read print and magazines and everything. So it was really sad to say the least to see it go. And then Nicholas, the owner who I worked with, he opened at the Barrowlands, which is a big weekend market in Glasgow. But that's also shut down to like due to his circumstances. So yeah, there's a lot of questions in the air and one of my lifelong goals is to open my own magazine shop, and I do think Glasgow really needs something like that. And yeah, hopefully it's on the horizon one day. I want to do it.
So you could be the next Nikki from Issues in Toronto, the editorial designer who crosses over, or of course Jeremy Leslie in London.
Yes, yes.
There's a long and established tradition.
Yeah, I know. Nikki's like my idol. I'm not even joking. Like, I love her so much. I think she's exactly the type of person I see myself being, and she's such a role model for me. So, and obviously, I worked with Nikki from the International Magazine Centre. I do her marketing and socials now. So, working with her has been so interesting because obviously I'm doing running her socials and all this information I'm taking in it like directly helps me and like my work. So it's so good working with her and I obviously love her. So yeah, that's
And it
been
sounds
great.
like it was all sort of her fault in the first place because she
Yeah.
came and told you that you had to do it.
Yeah, she did. And what really pushed me to do it was she said, if you have it ready for Mag Street in October, so this was last year. I think she came in May last year. And I told her this idea, and she was like, "You have to do that. And if you have it ready by the 3rd of October, you can do a talk at Mag Street, you can launch it, and this can be your platform." And I was like, right, okay. So that was my motivation. So yeah, all thanks to
Amazing.
her.
And
Hmm.
so will you be at Magazine Street again this year?
Yes, yes. I'm actually gonna be like taking a lot of content for her and running around and doing stuff like that. So I won't be talking, thank God. Can't do that again. I've had enough talks this year. It's too scary. Will you be
That's
there?
good. Do you know what? I've never made it yet.
Mm,
I really like the idea of it. It's
mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just a long way to go, isn't it?
Yeah, it's only 4 hours on the train. It's not too long, but I get it. I get it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is it really only 4 hours on the train?
Everyone says this when I say that. Yeah, 4.5 hours on the
Blimey.
train. I
Okay,
know.
all right.
Well,
Well,
you're
so
based in London, aren't you?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. 4.5 hours. Not too bad.
But then at the end of the last one, wasn't that when there was a storm and like everyone got stuck at the airport or something?
It was so bad. It's like classic Glasgow. Yeah, that was a bit of a disaster.
All right, so you've got the next issue coming up. Is that due for this year?
Yes, October.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've got the work that you're doing with Nikki on International Magazine Centre and Magazine
Mhm.
Streets. You also have your studio.
Mhm.
So is is that an editorial design studio, or do you go broader
Mhm.
with that?
I don't really. I do the odd poster design, which honestly don't love doing. I really just try to stick to stuff that I like doing. Saying that, obviously, it's quite hard to find editorial projects. Thankfully, for the last year and a half, I've been consistently booked, which has surprised me. But I think because these projects obviously take a while, like I'm working on the same thing for about 3 months. So yeah, I've been really lucky with the work I found and just working with great clients. But I have slowly realized that I don't really want to be a designer, which is a funny thing because I studied it for 4 years. But I think doing Sandweegies and just falling in love with the process of it, and I've realized that my strength and my love kind of goes into like art directing, producing, kind of like project managing almost. So I'm trying to see, what can happen in that, and hopefully my long time goal with Sandweegies is to turn it into more of a publishing studio. We're doing a collab with Newspaper Club throughout the summer, and we're doing a little side project Sandweegies, creating a newsletter. So yeah, I'm kind of taking steps to do that and seeing if that's possible. But yeah, lot to uncover.
So you're trying to move into being the person who makes the stuff happen rather than the person who's actually laying pages out.
Exactly. I love doing it, but for me, with Sandwiches, it's such an afterthought for me almost. It's kind of like so much work goes into the planning, the production side of it, and then which is the bit that gets me ticking. Like I love doing that so much. And then the design, I love like kind of shaping an issue and kind of coming up with, color palettes and art direction, yada yada yada. But it's definitely not at the forefront of my mind, which has made me realize that there's other stuff that I love doing and stuff that I'm better at. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I might go back to it. I don't know.
Well, this is it. So you started the magazine in order to show yourself that you don't want to be designing a magazine. You want to be running things and publishing
Yeah.
stuff and making it happen. Look,
Yeah.
Nancy, it's so lovely talking to you. Thank you for taking the time. And I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what this secret third issue is going to be about, and then
Yeah.
where you take things on from there.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was so fun. I loved it.
Cheers.